Jules Dakaday, and I'm going to react on Black Lives Matter. So first, Black Lives Matter is a social movement dedicated to fighting racism and police brutality against black people. So this organization was developed in response of killing of Trayvon Martin, as you all know that in social media news, by George Zimmerman and his Agital murder charges in resulting court case in 2013. And we can see that black people are suffering such acts of violence and racial inequality, which is a bad thing to humankind, and it can be inflicted on someone on the basis of race or any other characteristic. So as of now, we continue to cope up with the challenges of a global pandemic, and another issues has impacted people across the world, and that is the problem of racial inequality. And in American, all lives matter except people who are black, and I disagree on that stand, because in reality all of what we're saying means nothing if you can't apply it into your real world and begin considering that while we all live on the same planet, we all live in a different worlds but same lives. But to face it all, we're just all human beings fighting like we're lab subjects, and we all know that we treat each other as sames. No more pride that just above on our standards. And I agree that all lives matter, no matter what black or skin you're wearing, and even insufficient or sufficient money you do have in your pocket, still all lives matter. Black Lives Matter is about wrongful deaths of men and women of color at the hands of the police, and confronts the injustice suffered by communities of color since the beginnings of our community, and that continue today. So I think of a solution for this, because we all know that it is a bad thing, right? So maybe some policies or practices like stop the racial inequality and create an environment of community of colors. So to make it short, how can we expect things to change, like the racial inequality to stop and the lives that being wasted? So I think let's come together as one, like community members, religious entities, social services, the medical community, and law enforcement, local government unit, and any other organization. So let's build safe and nurturing communities where it's supposed to be in reality. Every life matters. That's all, and thank you.
Black Lives Matter movement has changed the way the nation talks about race. It garnered widespread international support due to the issues of racism and discrimination being familiar in almost every society. It is just sad that sometimes the government still ignores the issues of systematic racial injustice, but it is not a hindrance. This movement should continue to fight for their justice until the desired justice is reached. Despite accusations of being overly confrontational, the group has been able to cultivate a dialogue throughout the country and offer a unified voice to call out against the racial inequality.
Global Exchange stands in solidarity with the movement for Black Lives Matter in the United States and around the world. One of the greatest criticisms of Black Lives Matter movement is that the organizations actually worsens relations between African American, and police, and incites violence. I'm just unhappy because sometimes the governments just ignore the issues about this being racism and discriminating black people. But the black people are holding still. They still continue the movement until they rise up to resist injustice and to rebuild a future that is rooted in human rights and a true human equality.
From what I know, the Black Lives Matter movement was established back in 2013 when an African American teenager was shot to death by a watch volunteer, seemingly a result of racial bias. Ever since then, people around the world have been protesting against racial injustice. But is it really all that it's made out to be? If we know one sure thing about our world, it's that nothing is as it seems to be, and with recent events, more and more issues have come to light. I, for one, think that BLM is full of hypocrisy. Maybe it was formed out of goodwill and for the benefit of the people affected, but I just don't think that's what they're actually fighting for now. This whole movement stemmed from police brutality in the favor of whites over blacks. Yes, I think there was complete injustice in that matter, but it doesn't stop there. If we were to look at the now and examine the state of things in society just casually, there's still a lot of racial discrimination, but not towards who you might think. Countless platforms on social media are glorifying black people and other racial minorities, all while vilifying white people as they are privileged and are therefore automatically racist and oppressive. You can see a lot of this in the media. It's a very common case in the US. It's this belief that white people are naturally racist and that there's no excuse, and that whiteness is a pandemic, which is just a very bad generalization of a certain group. A lot of people don't realize that that in itself is racist. We're singling out one race and setting it apart from others, but apparently these people don't think that reverse discrimination is real, which I agree. There is no such thing as reverse discrimination. There's only discrimination, and everyone can experience it. If years before there was racial segregation discriminatory to black people, now it has resurfaced, but against white people. POCs, or people of color in the US, are demanding their own space, free of whites, because they feel safer that way. It's truly bizarre to see them treat these people as predators always out to kill, going as far to say that a homeless and poor white person is much more privileged than a well-off black person. They're the same as everyone else, and no, it's not ingrained in their nature to be oppressive. I get that there's a whole history of Americans being oppressors and how Africans have suffered, but we're past those times now, and they're not at fault for the sins of their ancestors. Even more, when the All Lives Matter slogan started circulating, it received a lot of backlash. In an argument against the counter-movement, some have stated that all lives can't matter until black lives do, which is ridiculous. That statement would suggest copious amount of discrimination against other racial groups just to elevate one. The truth is, all lives do matter. Nobody says black lives don't matter except maybe those truly racist people who aren't by any means a representation of a whole group. All this hate against white people is just causing further divide and solves absolutely nothing. You can't fight racism with more racism. That just incites chaos and a battle for dominance. Now, to top it all off, the millions of donations sent to BLM was apparently not disclosed. Even the mother of Breonna Taylor, one of the victims of police brutality, has said that their family did not receive any donations from BLM. In an article, another nonprofit started by Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrice Cullors has some fishy finances. Dignity in Power, now a group started by former BLM boss Can Cullors in 2013, raked in hundreds of thousands in donations but claimed otherwise to the IRS, public documents show. It received at least $225,000 in 2016 but told the IRS that the charity had not made more than $50,000 that year, according to public filings. Failing to meet that revenue threshold meant that the group didn't have to file a complete federal return, which would outline all of its spendings and donations. The obvious question is what happened to the money, said NLPC Chairman Peter Flattery. Given these circumstances, we believe that an audit is in order. Questions about the group are emerging amid allegations of lack of transparency of Black Lives Matter's finances by several of the movement's own breakaway chapters. Can Collars resigned last month as the leader of Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation following the Post's expose on her spending. Can Collars spent $3.2 million on real estate in Los Angeles and Georgia in the last 2 years. And that already speaks volumes of their intentions. But are we really surprised? It's an organization run by people. People have agendas. Agendas change. I can think of one selfless thing people have actually done for others. This movement is no different. I get that this, among other things, is a way for people to spread positivity and end injustice, but what good is an organization if its leaders don't have the people's best interests at heart?
The Black Lives Matter movement must be viewed in the context of the historical legacy of police and criminal justice system mistreatment of the blacks, as well as American political and social institutions in general. That is a fact. The movement, I believe, is both a reflection of and a reaction to that heritage. The difficulty is that this is a really difficult thing to conceptualize. And it's a difficult situation because there are variations in the frequency with which people commit crimes across racial and ethnic groupings, putting some groups in touch with the police at a rate that is disproportionate to their population size. Taking those disparities in criminal participation into consideration is not straightforward. Do you believe there is any possibility of resolving this problem? I am optimistic that the current tensions will dissipate. However, it is crucial to remember that these issues will not be remedied in the long run until resources are dedicated to putting strong measuring systems in place to collect quality data on what the police are doing in terms of the use of force. The necessary resources must also be committed to developing better data systems for monitoring how communities feel about the police, as well as training systems in which police officers are trained to use what are known to be effective methods for both improving community trust and preventing crime. Good intentions alone will not make our community safer or address the issue of citizen distrust of the police in some places. The idea is not to have a safe police state. The idea is to have a safe democratic society.
So, we are all aware that racism has been around for over a millennia now and is still going on up to this day. We also know that this has severely affected the way some people see and treat the black people in the community. So what we're going to talk about now is this movement that started in the year 2013 after a teenager was killed the year prior. But just this past year, 2020, it became a lot more viral and known, especially to the people who have access to social media and to those who are updated with this issue that happened May 25, 2020. That was the day that the late George Floyd was murdered by a policeman with the name of Derek Chauvin. So, that is the incident that sparked anger and wrath to the black community and to some people, which led them to push this movement. So looking back a year later, what did it really contribute to the rights of our black brothers and sisters? In my opinion, at first, it was right. It's inevitable to feel angry after seeing the video footage of George Floyd having his body drop down the floor with a knee at the back of his neck. Okay? It was just straight up murder in my eyes. But the way that they approached it so far is not right. Okay? The way that they have done it so far is they're just trying to solve racism with racism. Now, for me, that's just going to breed another hate. They're just going to create another hate, create another revenge. It's just a never-ending cycle. Okay, so we are people drawn to act in the name of revenge that we deem to be justice. But if there is justice in revenge, then that same justice will only breed a lot more revenge and will just trigger a never-ending cycle of hatred. Their goal may be as good, because who wouldn't want to live in a world where you aren't going to be judged with what skin you're in, with what neighborhood you live in, with what religion that you believe in, with whatever race that you're in, whatever everything that you're in. Okay? But so far, it has actually caused a lot more negative. So, it is more on the negative side of the spectrum for me. It has caused a lot more hate towards people. Personally, I think that there's a much better way than causing havoc in front of the White House, cursing and disrespecting the police force, disrespecting the cultures, the traditions of the white people, burning the statues that glorifies white people. I just really think that there's a much better way. We are a much better person than that one. Okay? I believe that we could come up with a way together that's going to solve this issue right here. I'm a firm believer that we gotta get by our own differences and that we gotta have an honest conversation with each other, which I hope is going to open up a debate, and at the end of the day, we're going to have exposure with each other, and at the end of the day, we're going to sit down and really rip at this issue and get after it. I'm not dismissing this issue. I'm well aware of what's really happening, and there's no way I'm turning my back on this issue in no way, shape, or form. So, I'm just merely presenting an alternative thought in this issue. So to end this video, let me just say this. Whatever starts as a movement always turns into a business, then eventually becomes a racket.